Hello, and welcome to another episode of An Interview with an OM. As always, I'm your host, Alicia Bunce, and today we're sitting down with Jaime Erpenbach from the Orlando Philharmonic.
Let me turn this guy up here. Sometimes these headphones are really finicky. I think I wear them out every day with the amount of meetings that I have going on.
I definitely understand that.
Yeah. Are you doing classes still?
Yeah, I have about 2 weeks left and then I'm finished.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? It's like
I'm
probably a relief.
Yes, so excited to just take a break from school.
Right? Move out into the real world.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So I'm ready. I got your questions. I have sort of looked at them and have answers. They're good. They're good questions. Some of them I was like, I don't know the answer to that. I will have to think about it.
Okay, well, to start, do you want to give us a bio?
Sure. You want a professional bio, like background or all of that, all the good stuff?
A lot professional, but a little background thrown in there.
Okay, so way back many years ago when I started, graduated high school, I decided I'm going to be an actress on Broadway. That's what I'm going to do. It's going to be amazing. So I went to undergrad at a school in Missouri called Lindenwood University, and I went for theater performance. And as I was doing that, I realized, wow, I really kind of like backstage better. Loved being on stage, but really liked the stage management and directing side of things. So as I moved into, professional life and had kids, that actually was a little easier and frankly, more steady income. So I kept doing that and helped start a theater company in California when I moved out there. And that was kind of an adventure. So did that and then moved to Florida. I've kind of been all over the world here and moved to Florida and did some odd jobs here and there, worked for a law firm, just random things that actually helped me now in the job I'm in. So that's the brief bio. I went and I started my master's program in nonprofit administration. I ended up getting a certificate in that, and then went to Rollins College here in Florida, in Orlando, and got what's called a mini MBA. So they do a really intensive, 8-week program at the university, and just it's hardcore into everything. So that's where I'm in my brief bio, and I've been with this orchestra for 2 years and kind of have moved up through the ranks. So that answers the one question. 2 years I've been here, almost exactly 2 years. And I started as a artistic operations coordinator working with guest artists. It's my first orchestra. Like I said, my background's in theater and musical theater and that kind of thing. And I then was promoted to a management position, and recently the director of artistic operations retired and I was promoted to this position. So in 2 years I've kind of moved up more quickly than I had anticipated, but that's okay. Here we are.
What do you think the differences are between being in theater and then orchestra?
There aren't a lot of differences other than the type of artist you're dealing with. So actors are just a different breed than a musician. I think with orchestra, the initial setup and getting to the point of a concert is a lot more detailed than a theatrical production, meaning when you choose a theatrical production, it's a play or a musical, and it is what it is. The author wrote it, this is what we're doing, and you kind of work around that on a specific timeline. And it is usually a shorter timeline, 6 to 8 weeks, and you're done. With orchestra, you're planning different repertoire that can change and move, especially now. So much has changed, and you have a lot more musicians that you're dealing with rather than 6 to 10 or 12 actors. You have 55 to 100 musicians on stage. So It's a little more involved as far as production and just getting to the point of the audience seeing this beautiful product. So the biggest differences are really the administrative and production end of it. I think the end product is always, to appease the audience and make them happy and make them feel like they're part of whatever artistic medium you're putting up there, whether it's ballet or opera. And I've worked in opera and I've worked with ballet and I've worked with theater. So I think orchestra is, of all of those, the most intensive and maybe a little stressful to get to that point. That's what I would say. Music is just a totally different industry than any other industry I've worked in. Musicians are a little more, I don't want to say, because their craft is so specific, it's harder to not appease them, but like it's harder to get them on stage because you can only have so many flutes, and this person can't play flute and clarinet. They're a flute player, so it's not like a theater where you can say, well, can you play this role and this role? Sure, I can. Here it's like, no, I only play that. So so it's a little more of a delicate thing because it's such a specific craft.
I did not think about that.
You what?
I didn't think about that, how you can't ask them to do something else.
Right, it is what it is. Percussion is probably the only one that you could say, hey, could you play? Yes, I can play, 10 cans. That's fine.
Speaking about how it's changed, what was your typical day-to-day schedule?
Before, like pre-COVID?
Yes, pre-COVID.
Yeah. Pre-COVID, I think the day-to-day is probably the biggest thing that has changed, and maybe the long term. So pre-COVID, a typical day would be, email check in the morning. That's my routine. I just check all my emails because you have to put out whatever fire has happened overnight or immediately needs attention. And then I would move into, okay, the next concert that's coming is this. So let me go through my list of what the guest artist needs. They have things called tech writers. Have you heard of those?
No.
A tech writer? Okay, so every artist really in any kind of art has a tech writer usually, and it basically says, this is the kind of equipment I need. This is the thing I need in my dressing room. These are whatever they need. So I would go through those and make sure we had everything lined up and ready to go. Transportation, airlines, ready to go. In the position I'm in now, I've never had it pre-COVID. So to say a day-to-day as the director, not really sure how it was pre-COVID. I could tell you how my boss was. He did a lot more high-level budgeting, making sure the staff had what they need, meetings, planning for the next season. I think now it's harder because we're fixing the season we're in, because we can only have so many musicians on stage to adhere to social distancing by keeping each musician kind of in a box of 6 by 6, keep everybody 6 feet apart. Well, I can't fit 100 musicians on stage. I can probably do 45 or 50. So a lot of times that means changing the music that we're doing. So a lot of the programs have changed monthly or every 6 months just to accommodate the needs. And I think like in July, we started changing the fall, and now here we are still in the midst of the pandemic going, well, now I have to change January and February and March and April, which we didn't think we would have to do. So that's currently my day-to-day. How do I fix everything that's happening now? In Orlando, there are shockingly a lot of outdoor concert venues that would accommodate orchestra. So we're dealing with the need to be outside, and where can we go do that? And then you have to change everything production-wise, sound, all of that has to change so that the audience can hear, because it's not a concert hall that would have the acoustics you need. So, before I felt like the job was very busy. My days would fly by, but less putting out fires. It was more like this, I can plan for the next thing. Now it's like, okay, every day there's something that problem that has to be solved, and it's really hard to move forward to the next step. We're trying to plan next season. Well, how do we plan? I don't know how we plan, because is everything going to be the way it is now, or are we going to be able to put more people on stage? Am I going to be able to have more people in the audience? Are we all wearing masks? That kind of thing. So it's kind of like you're a fortune teller. I don't know. Let's guess what might happen in September. Who knows? So does that kind of, it's hard, like I said, in this position to tell you how it was before. Because this position, I'm just going, this is how it is. It's kind of the normal for me.
I mean, yeah, that's still helpful.
Yeah.
That gives me another question of, so the artists have tech writers. Is that in addition to the CBA, or is that completely separate?
Yes, they're different. The collective bargaining agreement, or the CBA, is a union agreement. So what that means is it affects all of our musicians. So in an orchestra, you typically, depending on the orchestra, for example, the Orlando Philharmonic is a per service. So our musicians get paid per every rehearsal, every concert that they're sitting in a chair. We have core musicians that auditioned for their spots, so they're our first hires. And then we have sub who have also auditioned and are like in an order of hire, and then we have extras. So the union agreement covers the orchestra, and those are the things we have to follow, like how long they have to sit, how many breaks they get. That's almost very basic. A tech writer is usually just for a guest artist. So somebody that isn't part of the orchestra has moved above that. They're a solo only, and we hire them to come be featured in the orchestra. So it's similar because we're contractually obligated to follow their tech writer, but it's not the same as the CBA, because the CBA is a group union thing that a lot of orchestras have. And, actors unions are all very similar.
Oh, okay. What are some softwares that you use daily and swear by?
We here use something called OPAS. So it's an orchestra production and administrative system. It was developed by a gentleman that worked in orchestra admin, and that contains everything. It has our library of music that we have here. It has our schedule, it has the hiring, it has everything. It's our go-to system. That's the best thing we found so far. We used to do everything through like Google Docs, and it was just a mess of like random things. So when I started a couple years ago, they had just implemented the system. So it's been a real learning curve for us, but the staff we have right now is really working to figure out, wow, there's a lot we can put in here, and this system does a lot for us. We also use for ticketing something called Tessitura, which is kind of a more specific event ticketing system. There's Ticketmaster that a lot of concerts use and a lot of sporting events. And we used to use them, but now we use Tessitura, and it allows us to change seating a little more easily because every venue is different. And with Ticketmaster, it's really venue specific. That's it. That's what you do. So those are our big software things that we use. We always, we have Microsoft for our email, that kind of thing, but the biggest softwares are those two things.
That's good. What has been your proudest moment in this organization?
In this organization or overall? I think being asked to step into the director position was a little of a shock. I wasn't prepared for my supervisor to retire. He just one day was like, I'm retiring in 4 weeks, and we'd like you to do this position. Oh, okay. I think that was probably the proudest, where I felt like, wow, I've accomplished something. I've been able to move up, and really in 2 years, that's in an organization, that's very quick. It's not really something that people get to do that quickly in any organization, unless you start there, unless you're hired into that position. And because he founded this orchestra and he had been a part of an orchestra before in Orlando, it was really an honor for him to ask me, can you step into this position? That's a big trust for somebody who has literally grown something and said, this is my baby. This is my thing that I've spent my literal, whole 30s, 40, long time doing. And here I'm giving it to you, kind of thing. And that was, I think, the proudest and like, wow, really honored is the best word I can think of. Like, wow, that's really great. Thank you. You don't really know what to say. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's like, okay, thanks. So that was probably the proudest so far, even in my career, not just here. That was probably the proudest.
Aw. And then what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from that?
Gosh, like failure is kind of harsh, but I would say when we started a community theater in California, we had these like big dreams of we're going to be this amazing professional repertory theater that brings in folks from all over, because where we were was right in the middle of San Diego and LA. So we thought, oh, this will be the go-to. We're right in between two big cities, two major art cities. And I wouldn't say it was a failure, but it didn't go the way we planned. And I think it didn't end up being the professional organization we wanted it to be. It truly was a community theater, which isn't bad at all. It is a needed thing that brings in people who their daily job is something else and they just want to have this expression on stage. So I wouldn't say failure. I think it was like, oh, we'll take this, but I'm a little disappointed that it didn't become the thing I wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. So I would say what I learned from that probably was to have smaller goals and to build, you have this big dream. This is where I want to be one day. This is what we want from this. But let's take baby steps to get there. Let's not start, like, we're just going to start in this big lofty thing and we're going to spend $1 million to do it. Well, maybe we should have started smaller and built to that point. Mm-hmm. And so that's really something I've taken with me over the last, because that was, 17 years ago, like 15, 16 years ago. Yeah, like taken with me. You have to start small and have little goals. It's always good to have that overall dream, but the little goals, and to be accepting when it kind of changes and goes maybe a way you weren't prepared for it to go or didn't maybe think you wanted it to go, because sometimes it turns out to be the better thing. Like I never dreamed I'd work in an orchestra. Like I said, I started out thinking I'm going to be on Broadway. This is the thing I want to do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm going to win a Tony Award by the time I'm 30. Those were all big, huge dreams, but sometimes the little steps you take send you another direction. And I'm really happy doing this. I never thought I'd work in an orchestra. And here we are. It's different. It's fun. Every day is a challenge, but it is a place I'm glad that I am. So you have to kind of roll with the punches is what I say. You never know. And you can be disappointed in the moment. Wow, I didn't get that part, or I didn't get that job I really wanted. But there might be something, and probably is something better out there for you. So you just have to kind of say, okay, take a deep breath and move on. Sometimes the no's are bigger yeses later. Mm-hmm. That would be the thing I would say is the biggest learning that I took from that.
That's really good advice.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
You said that your boss, had this position first. So is there a committee that you're a part of or people that are under you?
Yes. So I am the supervisor of the artistic operations team here. So there are people who report to me, and we have a personnel manager. That's the person that handles all of our musicians hiring and making sure people are on stage on time, following the CBA. And then we have a librarian. She makes sure all the music is ready. we have a production manager, and then under them, they each have people that report to them, stage managers and tech folks, lighting, design, that kind of thing. So it is a really big team. I have my direct reports are those 3 people, but under them, they each have a team that reports to them. So, you know, it seems small on the surface, but there's all these layers that kind of go to it that in this position, you have to know. I have to know what's going on, even if it's not something that I'm directly having someone report to me on. I'm also part of the executive committee, which is a branch of the board of directors. Because we're a not-for-profit, we have most organizations do, but us specifically, a board of directors that helps move us along in the big picture. You know, where do we want to go? What is our mission? So I'm part of the executive committee on that. I'm not a voting member, but I do attend the meetings.
And then moving to the employment section, what advice would you give to someone hoping to go into your position?
I think any, you know, as an arts administrator, the advice that anything going into it would be, it's never what you think it's going to be. And you have to be very flexible and understand that the audience, the board, the people on the outside don't understand what goes in every day, how to make this happen. All they see is the thing on stage. That's what they see. All they see is even if you're going into, non-orchestral, if you're going into any kind of music industry, because I see that's kind of what you're focusing on, right, with some of these interviews. You have to understand that you are the unsung hero, right? You're the person. You're never going to get a thank you. You're never going to get somebody going, wow, you did an amazing job, because what they see are the artists. So, you have to go in knowing that you did a good job and that your team will be the thank you. That will be the thing. Seeing that production on stage is the thank you and the gratitude. Sometimes, occasionally, you'll have somebody in the higher up or an audience that says, I see what you did and that's amazing. But my advice is to never go in thinking you're going to get the accolades, because you're not. You're not going to be the one that they're like, wow, you did a great job, and clap for you. So you just have to go in very confident that you know what you're doing and that the end product was a result of what you did behind the scenes. That would be my biggest advice. Don't go into this if you want to applause for you. Maybe for other people, the performers. Yes.
Yeah, so it's more about the internal, accomplishments. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because you want to make sure, and I know that's further down maybe on your list, but you want to make sure that you're joining a team that has the internal recognition of what everyone does. It's very important, especially in a not-for-profit, to understand all the departments, because sadly, in a not-for-profit, you're always going to be doing 2 or 3 people's jobs. There's never a time, usually, where a board of directors is like, let's hire the 15 people we need to make this happen. They're going to say to you, make it work with 5. So you have to understand what every department's doing and how that intertwines with what you're doing. I've worked in for-profit organizations, and that is somewhat true there too, but at a higher level. I think here we're very much in the know of what every single person, I know what the box office does. And in a normal, for-profit setting, I wouldn't. This position would never even come into contact with somebody probably in the box office on purpose. I mean, you'd have to intentionally go introduce yourself. So that, I think that's the thing you need to know going into this. I've literally worked in organizations where I was the, manager of the whole production, and I was plunging toilets. Never would I have thought, wow, I went and got a mini MBA and a bachelor in the arts to plunge a toilet. You're always going to have that moment of like, wow, this is great. what just happened? Kind of thing, because there's just sadly not enough money for the arts. So you have to be prepared to do more than what your job, it's always that joke, other duties as assigned. That's what's in your job description. Almost every job description is going to say other duties as assigned. Well, that really truly means other duties. So there you go.
Is there anything else that you wish you would have known going into this position?
I think for this position I'm in, I was pretty well prepared because as a manager, I worked very closely with the director of operations. The biggest thing that I found since starting in this position is, I wish I would have known how much you have to do, not just the big picture, the planning, the budgeting, making sure your staff has what they need, but actually attending rehearsals and doing the day-to-day minute details. Because in most places, a director position doesn't do that. Their job is to do the overall and make sure the people who are supposed to do the day-to-day little stuff are doing it. So I wish that I had known there wouldn't be, and I think a lot of it's COVID issues. You don't want to hire new people because we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't want to have to let people go. So we're just going to work with what we got. So I think that has been the hardest and most unknown, is moving in like, well, they're not going to replace the management position or the coordinator position. So now I'm doing those jobs as well as the director job. So I feel like that would have been good information moving in, but that's okay. We're gonna go with it and hope that one day it changes and we're in a position that we can replace those folks. So.
And I know it was a little different with you, but what is a typical process of employment like?
For an orchestra or for this position?
For that position.
I mean, it really is like any other. I think sometimes in a director position, like other higher level positions I've been in, you are asked to do it or you're headhunted, which do you know that term?
Vaguely,
like other
yeah.
Organizations will see what you're doing and they'll literally approach you and say, we want you for this position. Or they'll do a search. When our executive director position was open, we hired a firm to find those people, and they were approached. Each person applicant was approached for the job. So when that's the thing, and then you're submitting your portfolio, what you did. Here's my resume, because you're trying to prove who you are on paper. And that's harder to do than how I got this job. I think it's easier to prove it physically and in your day-to-day. Like, see, I can do this job because I've proved to you I can, and I'm good at it. So there's more confidence going in. A lot of times when you hire from the outside, there's always that period of, that's why they say that 90-day, you have 90 days to decide, and we can let go and you can go, and no hard feelings, because until you're doing the job, you don't know. You don't know if you're going to get along with your coworkers. You don't know if you're going to be good at it, or like you said before, what I didn't know going into this. Wow, I wish I had the chance to back out now. So that kind of thing. But, any other job, I think in the arts especially, and in music, it's easier to move up than it is to start at a high level. It's easier to take that lower level job and work your way up. Because like I said, you're proving yourself every day. I can do this. I'm the right person. And many companies would rather hire within. They want to promote within. They don't want to have to go find another person. It costs more money to hire a new human being than it does to keep the people you have and promote them and make them happy. So that's just facts. Like any nonprofit organization will tell you that, any HR person. It's cheaper to keep you than to hire somebody to replace you. So
Okay, that's all I had, except
okay.
Do you have any other tips or
Are
information you want to share?
you, I guess I have a question, like what are your goals after graduation? Because you said 2 more weeks, you're done. It's crazy.
Well, the plan was to try and get an entry-level position, like at an orchestra, symphony, something like that.
Okay.
But like you said, people aren't hiring right now because we don't know what is happening. So I'm still looking, and I hope to just get a job in the field.
And you want to be in the orchestral. You want to work in an orchestra.
I just want to do music. And
okay.
My degree is in nonprofit, so.
I think and I don't know if you're in a position to do this or, financially, it does help to find an internship. And a lot of places are doing that now because they can do that. It's shorter term or contract work. A lot of places are like, we need somebody just to work this concert. Because like I said, just get that foot in the door. And where are you looking for open positions? Have you looked with the League of American Orchestras?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I know, and if you're willing to move, if you're willing to relocate somewhere, it does make it a little easier because they're everywhere. Orchestras are everywhere. And there's, here in Orlando, there's a lot of musical opportunities. Right now, maybe not, but Disney, Universal, all those big things always have options that will help build your resume if you're willing to start at the bottom. Like you said, I just want entry level. It's okay that I know I have a master's degree, but it's okay that I start as an assistant or a coordinator and I work my way up. I said the same thing, I started and I'm well beyond my undergrad and even graduate programs, but I said, you know what? I just want to be back in the arts. That's all I want to do. So I'll take whatever position you got. And it pays to have the degree, I promise. People say, oh, it's just a piece of paper. That's not true, because you could have 2 candidates, and that's the biggest encouragement I think I can give you. You've gone to school, you've done the work, you're getting your piece of paper that you can hang on your wall. Be proud of that, and know that if there are 2 candidates, because if I were hiring somebody, there's 2 candidates, they're both the same, except one has this education. I'm going to go to the person that has the education, because you know more, you've been taught more, you've had this education experience, and that's the thing you need to know going in. Just be.
We were at the end. I'm just going to leave it there. That's pretty unfortunate that we lost her right there at the end. That's what happens. Technical difficulties are very real and very constant, it seems like. So okay, I'm going to follow up with her through email, and I will add any information that she shares that she didn't get to, like plugging the Orlando Phil's events coming up, in the outro that I will record later. So thank you. Goodbye. Thanks so much for watching and or listening. And if you're interested, there are more episodes and interviews on the same platform that you found this one, including a summary episode at the main end of the series going over differences we may have found and overall best practices for operations managers in the nonprofit field. So stay tuned. Thank you. Goodbye.